Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
Welcome back, guys. You guys remember Mother Shipton, right? The feared witch of York. Ooh, she was a prophetess. Yes, yes. Did she commune with the devil? I don't know.
Well, she must have, of course. She's one of those.
Yeah, if she has a functioning pineal gland, she's got to be one of those, or actually one of us. Here you go, Knaresborough in the UK. You can see Mother Shipton's cave. So, yeah, fascinating story. But what I wanted to, and just to give you an idea there, so you can see where it is. I wanted to focus on the cave itself. And part of the legend, as I look out on just thick, heavy fog, it feels like the perfect day to talk about these type of things.
I know, the fog. The fog's pretty thick.
So Mother Shipton is England's most famous prophetess. She foretold the fates of several rulers within and just after her lifetime, as well as the invention of iron ships, the Great Fire of London in 1666, which, of course, that 666 is right there. It was a very, very interesting year. And the defeat of the Spanish Armada, as well as making traditional remedies. Mother Shipton had another gift. She could predict the future. So in other words, again, she was somebody that had understanding of herbs, understanding of maybe the flow of energy. Again, this is what we find that the system has gone after, is people with knowledge of herbs and what we call today alternative healing modes.
Which is really sad that they even call it alternative, because it was the original way of healing. I mean, what other way could there be?
Yeah, absolutely. Soon she was known as Knaresborough Prophetess and a witch. She made her living telling the future and warning those who asked what is to come. After a long life, she died in 1561 at age 73. Mother Shipton's birthplace. Again, she's another one that, as you'll have with certain prophets, all of a sudden, what's attributed to them is not always actually what they actually gave us. People will kind of pseudepigraphically add to the story. And so, she did have her prophecies about these times. But what I wanted to look at was the other part of this, which is the cave itself. As you see the water coming down, it's an unusual cave in some ways, and, be really suitable for a very unusual person. You see the stalactites and stalagmites, which build in caves, and the process of the minerals going ahead, and developing an interesting, in case of certain objects, petrification. It's like petrification, for lack of a better word. Here you see, this is an image that would be symbolic of Mother Shipton, and it's like she was turned to stone. Remember Medusa? That was a titan that literally, if you looked at her face and her eyes, you would be turned to stone. Well, a couple of things that people become aware of is the fact that it seems like there's a lot of objects out there that look to be made of stone, but seem to be, in many cases, living beings, like gigantic elephants and gigantic people. And of course, we've had gigantic trees, like is the Devil's Tower in Wyoming, really just a big tree. Is this something that can happen naturally much quicker than what we might think or what science might tell us? Or are there technologies as well that can lead to petrification? Can you imagine some sort of military weapon that could send some sort of light or some sort of energy and immediately petrify your enemies, mid-step? Fascinating stuff, to say the least. People hang all sorts of things over here at Mother Shipton's cave, and they watch them get petrified. They get literally like calcified. And they have a stone coating over them. Of course, given enough time, you got to wonder, is this could be part of the same process that we saw happen to giants and other gigantic creatures, and maybe even the trees? Or is there something totally different going on? As you see, like right here, the shoelaces tied and the shoes turning to stone, or at least being covered with what seems to be a stone coating, a top hat, all sorts of teddy bears. This is just a fascinating situation. Somebody catch an angel mid-flight, or a little bat. Again, a lot of this is also literally just there to build up this story. But it appears to be real, that if you hang something out there, it will turn to stone. How about Mother Shipton herself? Again, who was Ursula Shipton? And besides somebody that has had an understanding of natural cures. Now, Cindy right away picked up that Ursula was kind of a stern person.
Well, she does. She has a very stern type of energy. What she said is absolute. And she wasn't the nicest, best personality to be around, but if you were going to go visit Ursula, you knew what you were going to get. You were going to get someone who's very strong-minded, very strong hand, someone who really was not messing around. And I mean, she was just her I like to call that personality very solid. You know what you're going to get with them.
So she grew up right here and spent most of her time as a kid right around the cave. Incidentally, they described her as having a very large nose that was crooked as well. Her back was bent, her legs twisted, just like a witch. She was, in fact, probably the prototypical witch in many ways. She was taunted and teased by local people. So in time, she learned that she was best off on her own. Well, yes, if you get picked on, then you can certainly become that way. That's very understandable. So she spent most of her days around the cave where she was born, and there she studied the forest, flowers, and herbs, and made remedies and potions with them. When she was 24, she met a young man by the name of Tobias Shipton. He was a carpenter from the city of York. Tobias died a few years later before they had any children, but Ursula kept his name. The mother part followed later as she became an older woman. Although we cannot be sure how much of the legend is true, what must be certain is that 500 years ago, a woman called Mother Shipton lived here, and that when she spoke, people believed her, and they took her words seriously. The prophecies may not all be historically correct. And I would say, too, I've seen people attribute the whole story to secret societies and the Freemasons, saying there was no truth and this was all just conjecture of the secret societies. But, it does feel that there was this entity, and Cindy did pick up on it. So usually they are based on some sort of real historical person.
That's right. They do base them off of that, but just like Yeshua and so many others, it's just not who you think. Or that energy can be surrounded in so many different storylines and many different truths than what we are given. So actually making that person almost unrecognizable when it comes to looking at them from the eyes of written history.
Yes, absolutely. And, it's just, again, fascinating. As we said, a lot of these prophecies kept building up over time. And, her notoriety kept rising. So some historical events that supposedly she spoke of, the rise of Elizabeth I, the Spanish Armada's defeat, which was the greatest navy at that time, the Great Fire of London, and then modern inventions, carriages without horses, i.e. cars, iron in the water, like steel ships, thoughts fly, literally, telecommunications, internet, or psychic, maybe. And then the end times, floods, plagues, the world's end, etc. And even, the landing of a silver looking ship that flies in the air and strange beings coming out after all the chaos of the Armageddon type prophecies, beings that come and help humanity rebuild after all the chaos. So there's a lot of things that are attributed to her, and whether or not she actually said any of these things, again, that's a different story. But there must be some truth to it.
There's always that ring of truth. It's grounded in an understanding, and I do believe that she had very special powers and she could see, and she was very stern. I don't think a lot of people totally understood her, though, and I think that's where the diversion happens, is with the misunderstanding. She had a very quirky personality. When you look in Vedic astrology, if you see someone with a Ketu in the third house, people just don't get them. They're going to be kind of caterwonky when it comes to connecting with people with their words and their understanding. And it's not that person's fault. It's just that person's not ready to hear it. Or maybe even they're deaf. It's important to know it's not anyone's fault. It's just Ketu separates us from communication.
Yeah, it's interesting. Her mother had her when she was 15, so she was very young, and they don't know exactly for sure the details of the father. It's just fascinating to look at this and pick up on these legends, and where do the facts all of a sudden become distorted. But yeah, talking about things like carriages without needing horses at that time. But as we learn more about, again, Tartaria and the whole concept of advanced technology, and like airships, for instance, well, back in this time, maybe they had airships, so it's so fascinating. And then that could lead me to say, well, maybe, the Masons, the secret societies, want to give prophecies about things that we see today, in an effort to negate the fact that they may have been around already in the past. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Right. There's just so many things to take into consideration.
There is. And then technology, because, just again, think about Lot's wife and the salt pillars. Don't look around. Don't look back. Don't look back at Sodom and Gomorrah. And boom, they turn into pillars of salt. They're petrified, right? Yet there is some truth to it. And also, we were talking again about, the Gorgon and Medusa and her ability to petrify, which in the, again, Greek myths, they chop off her head and use her head to petrify the Kraken. How about technology from ultra-terrestrials, to do just that? Again, there are legends of this type of technology being used when we talk about some of the giant beings. And then we have seen petrified things that look like, maybe giant elephants in places, human giants of all kinds. So it really, really makes you wonder.
And it's something where we just don't know about the technology that is out there. I always like that saying, you don't know what you don't know. You just don't know. And how could you possibly know if you haven't been exposed to such things? There's technologies out there that would just blow our socks off. There's no doubt in my mind. There's sound technology that can help the body rebuild itself. There's no doubt in my mind that reverse aging is going to become a thing, and we are going to learn some new things this year that are going to be absolutely so exciting. So you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, and if you look, you'll see that some people supposedly admitted that they wrote some of her end of the world prophecies and inserted them into the legend. Curious, can you? And I don't want to overwork you. Can you contact her? Do you feel her? Is she easy?
She's not easy. She has a very strong energy field up around her, and I think that had happened. What I'm picking up is there was issues during childhood that made her very, very strong and very protective of her energy. So it is difficult to kind of reach into her energy field because she's already put off that thing saying, I don't want to talk to you, or I do not want to take any energy off of you that is not mine. So I do see that in her childhood, she was very frightened of certain energies because she didn't understand it. And she was only exposed to what her parents told her and what the church told her and maybe some other few people here and there. So she was very, very frightened at a young age, and she did grow up and out of that. And she kind of grew into this no nonsense type of being that she just didn't mess around. So as far as being able to talk to her, she didn't always like to be talked to. She would give information, but she wasn't big on receiving. So if I do look into the energy field, a lot of the information she received as a child was very hurtful, and it was very frightening. She was happy to give information because she knew she was a psychic. She knew she could predict things. So she was okay with giving people information, but she didn't want this back and forth conversation stuff.
So I hope this was intriguing for you guys. And, again, we want to thank you for your support on Patreon and also YouTube memberships. If you are in need of a session, energy work, biofield tuning, Vedic astrology, just life coaching in general, reach out to us at evolutionaryenergyarts@gmail.com. And you can also look at evolutionaryenergyarts.com and learn more about us. As always, guys, it's always a pleasure to bring new information on some of the old historical figures and, do what we can to help illuminate the world.
Indeed.
Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.